Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being the show, we're talking about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of In the Dark. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, we get that intro, we get that cold open, and I thought that was such an interesting situation of like, obviously they're cleaning up, the bar and everything, and they're like, I think it was like, I think he said it was like, I can't believe Ben did this, and then you have, Murphy being like, I can, and it goes boom 7 days earlier. So it's like, dude, so like I said, it went from like 30 a month to 22 days to 9 days to now 7. It's like, oh, stop playing with my emotions, dude. Like, cause like I said, I guess they keeping it like that to make it super unpredictable when we'll actually get when that time, what is the future will eventually become present day. I don't know. I stammered to get there. I do apologize. But nevertheless, obviously Felix after last episode is like, all right, I got dunked in the toilet. Nia's dude came after me because I skimmed money. It's like, you skimmed money? It's like, yeah, but he's like, unlike you guys don't have to pay to get laid. And it's like, wait, did you pay Chelsea to sleep with? He's like, no, it's not like that. I took her to a restaurant. That's beside the point. We can't go to the cops about taking down Nia, but how about we go a step above her? Go to the FBI. We are just in a position where we were forced to money launderer for her. We haven't really done anything else. And Murphy is quiet the entire time. I'm like, ooh. I was wondering if Murphy was going to tell them or not. And it turns out the only person she tells is Felix. She's not even going to tell Jess. Her explanation is that if she tells Jess is just going to end up telling Sterling because that's the person Jess is, that Jess is going to tell the person that she's with. You know what I mean? To be fair, like in the confines of the show, Jess has never had to keep such a big secret. Because obviously, like season 1, Murphy's just investigating Tyson's murder. So obviously her girlfriend's there for that, the entire situation. So it's like, but this is you're doing some criminal shit and you have to kind of keep it tight-lipped. And it's like, I think it's also because, because obviously it's interesting because Jess is saying like, oh, she's not going to get her hopes up because Felix is saying like, oh, I'm going to get a lawyer looking into this and find out if we have an angle to this whole situation. But obviously now that Murphy's told him this and I think that speaks volume. I mean, to be fair, she really doesn't have anyone else she can talk to. If she can't talk to Jess, she has to talk to Felix. She has to let them know what's up. So so the whole point is to kind of make it so that Jess doesn't find out, which is obviously super suspicious because now Felix and Murphy are spending so much time together, which obviously makes Jess super like, wait, what's going on? You two hate each other. It's like, what? No, we don't. I like Murphy. Murphy likes me. Yeah. Like, it's super, yeah, like them together. It's like, yeah, something's definitely not right in the world if these two are, working together. So basically, Murphy gets a call from Nia saying like, oh, make a drop off and stuff like that. So they have to use a vehicle and everything. At the same time, like Dean, their investigation didn't go as well as they wanted it to, just because it's like, well, because of that angle, because all of Nia's drugs are gone, it kind of put them in a bit of a loss. So now they have to try and find a different angle to kind of come at this situation. At the same time, there's this whole thing with like Dean snapping at Chloe because Chloe is wanting to text Murphy, and he's like, whoa, no, like I don't want you because like even Chloe's like, I wonder what happened to you guys. I don't even understand what happened, and it's so interesting because Dean doesn't want that because I think there's a fear in him that Murphy might turn his daughter against him, and but I think maybe it's also just a thing of like, it's a constant reminder because, like I said, it's not what you expected Dean's story to be. Like, once you thought it was like open and shut at the end of season 1, or like she got him. I mean, you thought it was over and done with, but now you see like just the way they're progressing his story is wild. Like to see him just kind of like, oh, I'm out here doing cop stuff, even though I'm a murderer and I'm a bad guy. It's so weird. I mean, you see it in other crime dramas, but his position is such a unique thing because he still wants to pretend like he's the good guy at the end of the day. And, but part of me wonders is like the reason why he really doesn't want around Murphy is because it is a constant reminder of like, oh, all the terrible stuff that he's done. He wants to try and move past it. It's like, no, I'm going to take Nia down. Like I said, I think he thinks if he takes down Nia, it'll kind of, erase some of the sins that he's committed. Because in his mind, it's like killing Tyson's the only sin that he's committed. In his mind, it's not, but, But regardless, obviously, and he's like, talk to one of your other friends or something like that, and he takes her phone and she's like, until you start listening to me, which she makes a friend this episode. Well, or maybe it's someone she was already, like, she ends up skipping class with someone. So I think maybe Chloe's going to start turning a little more rebellious. I mean, I'm sure that's an aspect she would have already picked up from Murphy anyway, but she does have a friend now, and that friend wanted her to skip class. Dean rolling up on Murphy being like, oh, I know she's here, Chloe. It's like, if Chloe was here, she'd be here right beside me, wouldn't she? And then he's like, don't talk to her, don't text her, don't call her. It's like, you piece of crap. Murphy wanted to tell your daughter the truth about you, but she didn't because of how much your daughter loves you. She could. She's avoided you as much as she possibly can, despite all the terrible shit that you've done, screwing over Max and everything last episode. So it's just kind of like, but once again, it's just like, I think it's just he's so reminded of his own sins that's why he can't stand being around Murphy. Plus, she also manipulated him. He's like, oh, I cared about you and you manipulate me. Oh, like in his mind, it's like, oh, you bitch. But it's like, no, you're the bitch. You're the asshole who murdered her best friend. So it's like, it's an interesting situation, So, and obviously, once again, balancing all this, like Felix and Murphy, sneaking off with some of the drugs, using the Guiding Hope, the new, truck to get away. And Jesse's like, where y'all going? He's like, oh, smoothie. Yeah, I just had a craving for a smoothie. And I should have told you, but I didn't, but I will next time. And he's rolling up the window. He's like, yeah. And I love him telling Jess, love you. And I'm like, I get it. He's nervous, so he's running his mouth too much. So they go to the address. At the same time, you got everything with Darnell, because obviously it's like he finds out from Sam, it's like, oh no, like the cops didn't get Nia's drugs, actually she moved them, because obviously this screws him over, because obviously Josiah's like, oh no, like I want to hit her, but in a where it counts, but it's like now I can't, because now it's not even, well, they have to make it seem like the cops, it's like, oh, the cops took it. They're going to keep that lie up long, but eventually Josiah's going to find out, oh no, the cops didn't have, oh, she moved it. So, okay, you didn't do what I asked you to do. Oh, you and your friend bet his life on it. Bam, bam, type of situation. That's what he's even telling Darnell. So Darnell's on the lookout. But first he tries to talk to Nia about like, oh yeah, so what's going on? She's like, oh, you came down here just to tell me you took care of that person. He's like, yeah, She's like, what do you want, a cookie? He's like, nah. And obviously he's trying to get close to the operations and everything like that. But obviously you screwed up too much in the past. Like, you're not going to be part of the inner circle. Maybe before, sure. As you are now, no way she's going to let you in on that stuff. She's going to keep you at a far distance, because last person she let get too close to her ended up being, a traitor, that being Matt. Well, I mean, even Max didn't even get that close. But I'm assuming it has to be Josiah, considering the fact is we learned that last episode he used to work for Nia, So regardless, the fact of the matter is Darnell ends up being on the lookout, and lo and behold, who shows up to be the drug, because he's like, okay, I follow whoever it is that drops off the drugs. I'll basically hold them hostage and get the info from them, like, hold them at gunpoint. But then he sees that it's Felix and Murphy's like, you got to be kidding me. And it was so interesting, the person they dropped it off to, because they thought like it was like a 5 bundle or something, and they were like, oh, they thought it meant like 5 bricks, and she's like, what the hell you bringing this much? It's only this. I was like, because at the moment she's like, what the hell is this? I thought it was like, oh, you were supposed to bring more, but you brought the wrong amount. It's like, oh, you brought more than you were supposed to. She's like, this isn't enough, and they're like, okay, so 5 bundle is 1 brick. So they kind of started it's like tricks of the trade of learning how everything kind of operates. So obviously, and I love that line where like, okay, they got back and Felix was like, all right, I'm gonna take the bag. They're like, and it's like, because people saw me leave with the bag, and Murphy's like, who cares enough about you to have noticed that? And you see the look in his eyes, and I'm like, okay, like, yeah, you're right. And it is kind of sad to be like, oh, that's so hurtful, but true. And they walk in the door, and Ben's like, yo, didn't you have a bag? And it's like, yep, let me go get that. I forgot that. So he hides the drugs, comes back inside. But he's like, oh, I got it. And Ben's like, you got what? It's like, what is that dude's problem? So it's like, hey, but Dean's got the van now because he's been looking into Max's stuff, which I also love that when him and Gene went to Max's place. I love Gene being like, he's got condoms everywhere. What was it, like extra large? Yeah, sure thing, bro. But the fact of the matter is Dean looking at a video of like Murphy and Max, and it's just like, once again, it hurts more so than anything because he had feelings for Murphy. That's what this is more so than anything. It's like, she manipulated me, she lied to me, she broke my heart. That type of situation. It's more, it's kind of part of the driving force. But now it's like, okay, we got to find something, because he's thinking that Max is the one that tipped off Nia, kind of getting back. He thought, that's why he's still alive. He must have, got back in her good graces. So he's thinking like, there got to be something that can connect all this. So they find Max's van because they know, truck, because they know that's what Guiding Hope is using now, because he chipped away the paint. So he's like, all right, so gets that towed. And now they're in a situation like, okay, so what the hell do we do? And they have to hide it from Jess, because they're making Jess like, oh yeah, we're just, things with the lawyer didn't work out. He says things aren't that look good. The fact is, it's kind of hard to prove that we were forced into this situation. So while that's going down, they have to lie, and it's like, oh yeah, me and Murphy decided we're going to go down there and, check out this whole thing, let them know that we didn't steal the van, that we got it and everything. And he's like, yeah. She's like, yeah, you and Murphy spending so much time together. He's like, and leaving me out of it. She's like, what? I mean, he's like, what? No, we don't leave you out of it. It's just, you were in here. You had already left by the time we talked about it, but now we're talking about it. So also, can we borrow your car? And it's just like, and so... Also, but like, it's like, okay, so what do we do? There's no way to get in, and Murphy's calling him a little bitch, but that kind of inspires him to be like, okay, you know what? Let's sneak in. And they sneak into the van that's being brought into police impound. It turns out it's a van where some shit went down because there's blood. He's like, oh my God, I think someone's murdered in here. There's blood, there's hair, there's bullet holes, and he throws up. Luckily, he did throw up in the bag. He's like, because last thing you want is your DNA in that whole situation. But I love and it led to an interesting. This episode also led to some growth between Murphy and Felix in the situation of, like Murphy's kind of digging into it more and more. He's like, I don't get it. Even under these circumstances, you're still kind of treating me like shit. He's like, I don't get it. Like, why are you always like this? She's like, you want to know why I did this? She's like, basically, you started this first. He's like, what? She's like, you try to get my parents to fire me, and just the entire time you're so condescending, so uppity. You act like you're better than everyone, and for her, that's what pissed her off. And I think that it was an interesting moment, because later on, Felix reflects back on it. He was like, you're 100% right. He's like, because I try so hard to not be my mom, and what happens? I end up being my mom anyway. He's like, and Murphy's trying to be like, you're not like your mom. He's like, yeah, I am. And I think that's why he tries to be like, because he tried to go so far against the grain, and you can make the argument he overcorrects so much, trying not to be like his family, in particular his mom. And even we've gotten instances of, even Murphy's like, I don't know your mom that well, but even from the little experience we've had, you can tell she's kind of a piece of work, and she is, she's not the best person, not the nicest person either, so... but it is a situation where she's like, yeah, I don't think you're not, as bad as I kind of thought you were, so it's like, but like they ended up kind of bonding a little bit. And I think over the course of this whole situation, their friendship is actually kind of growing, or at least it's growing into an acquaintanceship / friendship, early stages friendship. I think it's kind of an interesting element. But I love like when they did sneak into the back of the Guiding Hope truck, and like Max and Jean show up, and it's like, wait, what are you doing back here? It's like, oh, we were screaming, your driver didn't hear anything, and you want us to, you could have just gotten out there, like, and Felix like, we didn't want to break the law or anything. And it's like, what's in the bag? And it's like, he's like, I wouldn't, just give me the bag, Felix. Oh, it's vomit. Okay. You also know it's actually kind of like, even like, it just kind of popped in my mind thinking about, because obviously like Murphy was like, get your hands off me, and like obviously Dean was the one like, oh, I'm gonna pat her down, which is, I'm like, you should have let Dean should have let Jean do that, just because it was like, just because obviously for Murphy it makes her probably think about, just like, probably makes her skin crawl, because it's just everything that you've done, but also like she had to sleep with you to get your guard down for you to admit that you killed Tyson. So there's that whole situation. But even him being like, okay, well, I'm bringing you in, but Jean's like, dude, after that like failed bust last time, like, we can't bring them in on nothing because it's going to look worse on us. So they kind of had to let them go. But it turns out they hid the drugs on Pretzel because it's like, who's going to check a blind lady's dog? I guess it's kind of, the whole point of that whole situation. So I thought that was kind of interesting. At the same time all this is happening, obviously Jess is literally stressing the entire time. She's checking, where Murphy is, but it's like, oh, Murphy turned off the tracker, so it's like can't follow her. Trying to call her, but the phone is going being sent to voicemail. And the fact is, obviously, Jess is stressing out. Obviously, she asks Ben to look after the dog, but she comes back. The dog's gone. She's freaking out. Sterling's there to help. And then they finally find the dog, and then Jess starts breaking down, and you're like, okay. So, and even she admits it later on, like, what that was all about. But even at the moment, it's like, right. Because, like, basically, I think for her, my immediate thought was like, okay, so basically, because of all the craziness that's going down in her life, she wanted at least something stable, at least work could at least somewhat be stable, even though work's not even stable because that's where you're laundering the money. But she wanted to do this one thing where she could just focus, because she said it herself. She was like, I'm not going to get my hopes up. She kind of got her hopes up about, like, getting out of this whole situation, and now finding out, oh, like, we're still kind of in it. Like, she just felt like she was spiraling. And, I was like, the moment she was with Sterling, I was like, oh, you're going to tell Sterling the truth, aren't you? But she was like, no, I'm not going to tell. She's like, I'm just in some stuff, and I don't want you mixed up in it. But Sterling's like, don't worry, I'm going to be here. I was like, all right, Sterling's down. I was like, but that also proves Murphy's point that if she had told you, you would have eventually ended up telling Sterling. I mean, but maybe the fact is you didn't straight up tell her everything right now. It's proof that, hey, Murphy should have trusted you. To be fair, like, once again, this season is plenty examples of you should have told the truth. There's so many lies that are compounding upon each other. It's like lies have led to this situation, has led to this situation. Hell, there's even a situation where obviously Darnell showed up to talk to her about, like, wait, you're working for Nia? She's like, it wasn't really my choice. It's like, okay, like, she's like, kind of like, why does it matter to you? Like, you were done with all this. He was like, she was never going to let me go. Murphy's like, yeah, I kind of, understand. But it's like, oh, we could work together. I'm working with someone else that could help take down Nia, and we can both be free. But, like, Murphy can't do that because Max's life is on the line. But she's like, you think she's just going to let Max go? Like, Max still worked for her, like, especially now because, like, he owes her his life. So, but then we find out the delivery that Felix and Murphy made was getting sent to the prison that Max is in, and basically it's like, oh, here's a phone, here's the contact she got to deliver, like, the drugs to. So spreading the drugs even within, so obviously keeping people loyal and working for her in the prison as well. Once again, I mean, to be fair, Neil was literally running things even from the inside last season, so no surprise keeping that going on the outs, trying to keep, because I guess, like, it's like running things on it, try to run things on the outside, but also keep things running on the inside, that way you can still keep power, keep people loyal to you and stuff like that. So there's that whole situation. What I think is kind of fascinating is the way Ben is acting at an episode. Like, when he just passes out, it's like, well, we know he kind of lays about and kind of does nothing, but it's like, why? Like, he just seemed a little skittish this episode. Not necessarily he just seemed out of it. And I'm like, that's why I was almost like, did he sneak into those drugs already? Because, like, that's why I was thinking, like, when I can't believe that he did this to, like, he must find, like, I think Ben is a drug addict. He probably, like, gets high and stuff like that, and then he finds that heroin and starts taking some of it, or because obviously he needs money and stuff like that, so he must steal it at some point and try to sell it, because it's not like they can do anything about it, because it's like, oh, you're going to report, the fact is that I stole your heroin, so what are you going to do about it? It's like, well, they could tell Nia make you disappear. I mean, to be fair, we see things don't work out too well for you in the future, so I mean, we don't got the full context of everything, but still, it's going to be interesting to see how things kind of flow on that front. Obviously, there's the whole situation with the whole Josh thing we get a little bit of in this episode, Murphy helping him. It's like, he's like, because obviously he messed up on one of his reports, but it's like, no, she's like, you kind of got to go ahead and get used to the fact that you are going blind. You just kind of have to accept it. So it's a situation of like, oh, he uses an app, that kind of lists off his files. And as Murphy's listening, she hears about Nia, and it's like, okay. So now you know that he's investigating Nia, and eventually that will lead to him investigating you. He was already kind of investigating you already. I mean, granted, it was just an excuse because of the whole him going blind situation. But now it's like, oh, it seemed like it was like, oh, it's all good. But now it seems, no, it's not all good, because now, he's looking into Nia. And because that in itself could compromise everything. That's why you didn't want to work with Darnell. And now Josh, I mean, maybe she'll keep him close just so she can make sure that she can keep up to date with his investigation, or at the very least maybe steer him in the wrong direction, or at the very least steer Nia in the right direction to kind of avoid everything. So there's that. There's also an interesting thing where, like, Dean, you know, when he tracked down Chloe to tell her to get class and everything, the lady was like, oh yeah, we missed your past 2 months of tuition and stuff for Chloe. He's like, yeah, I'll get on it. It's like, right. Nia's not, you're not getting that boosted salary from Nia like you were before, so now that's coming back to bite you in the ass, and things are kind of crumbling on all fronts. So it's like, what are you going to do about, you know, all of that? I'm sure maybe he's going to try and leverage this situation of taking down Nia as a means of kind of boosting his, I don't know. Like, obviously, like, things aren't coming up all roses for Dean, even though he skated around the whole Tyson thing. Doesn't seem like it's all going to work out for him. I doubt it will. I think karma's going to can be a right fickle bastard and will come back and screw Dean over in some shape or form. We'll just kind of have to wait and see for him to finally get his comeuppance and what it will look like, you know? So there's that. Obviously, there's Murphy and, you know, Jess, you know, it's like, what's that all about? It's just like, yeah, we wanted to avoid you because you were sad, and I didn't want to be around you while you were sad but like, Jess is like, you gotta, you know, get adjusted to human emotions. If I'm sad, just be there, you know. It's just like, okay, obviously still lying to Jess about everything. So there's that. And then the final reveal at the end is, oh, it turns out Sterling works for Nia. You know, she's one of her, I guess, her runners, or like one of her people, because her and Sam are a thing, which is interesting because I was like, this answers my damn question, because it was even something Felix kind of brought up at the beginning, like, how the fuck did Nia know I took, that's why I was like, she must have the place bugged. Don't need to play, well, technically she does, by having a person there. I mean, that's the crazy thing about this thing. You don't know who actually works for Nia. The fact of the matter is, when it's all said and done, like, you know, we didn't know about Dean until, you know, it happened. So it's a thing of like, you're not really sure who actually works for Nia until the moment comes. But it's something interesting to think about, is this whole thing, because like, oh, you were trying to avoid a serious relationship, but now it seems like, oh, Sterling kind of strung you along on purpose, for the purpose of getting close to you, kind of keep an eye on everything, maybe, you know. So that's going to be heartbreaking when the time comes. Like obviously Murphy's lying to you. Well, Murphy and Felix are lying to you, but now eventually going to end up finding out. Hell, you're going to literally go through the exact same thing that, well, not the exact same thing, but to a certain extent, what Murphy, I mean, hell, Murphy kind of went through it, like when she found out the truth about Max and when she found out the truth about Dean. Like, Jess is going to kind of have that moment too, so that's going to be kind of a rude awakening when that happens. So, like I said, good reveal, like nice little twist at the end. But like I said, I'm glad to finally have an answer to like what I brought up last episode of how the hell did she know you skimmed the money? But it's like, Sterling keep count of everything, the drugs as well as the money, to make sure they weren't skimming, you know, beforehand, and then obviously caught them skimming, or at least caught Felix skimming. So I'm sure that's probably her job, to make sure everything's kind of in line, make sure they don't go off book, you know. While Sam can't keep an eye on them all the time this way, Nia always has her eye on them through, you know, Sterling. So like I said, either way, I'm so curious to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.